Microphone test 2 for work session, July 22nd, 2024. Microphone test 3 for work session, July 22nd, 2024.
Good afternoon. The time is now exactly 4 p.m. The Wayzata Public Schools Board of Education work session for July 22nd, 2024 will please come to order. Let's go around the table for a roll call introduction. We'll start from my right.
Heidi Cater,
Sheila Pryor,
Dan Ginestra,
Paras Bhinde,
Valentina Ayers.
Chase Anderson.
And I'm Milind Sohoni. Thank you so much, everyone, and welcome on this nice, warm, a little sultry summer day. The first item on the agenda for the work session today is the Communications Department, which will start us off with a presentation on a new district communications tool called Parent Square. Director of Communications and Community Engagement, Amy Parnell. Director of Technology, Wade Phillips, and Communications and Community Engagement Manager, Zach Nelson, will make the presentations. Over to you guys.
Okay. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Superintendent Anderson, and members of the board. We're really excited to be with you this afternoon to give you some more information about Parent Square, the new comprehensive communications tool that we're actually already in the process of launching. You've already introduced Zach and Wade, who are with today, and we're going to just each of us share some information and then open it up for questions at the end. So like I said, we've already started the training of staff throughout the district. Zach is taking the lead on all of that, and we will share more as we go. So why is a new communications tool needed? Based on pretty consistent feedback that we've got through surveys and anecdotally from staff and families, it was pretty clear that a new communications tool was needed for a number of reasons to help us improve the two-way communication between staff and families throughout the district. We really needed a reliable automatic translation tool that made our communications accessible to staff and families. Providing texting as an option is really necessary in this day and age, and so we needed a tool that would allow us to provide texting as an option. We also were hearing pretty consistently that not all of our families were receiving all of our messages, sometimes at a school level, sometimes at a district level, and there was a lot of troubleshooting that needed to happen to see why that was happening. We also really want to, just as we focus on each and every for students, we want to be able to personalize our communications as much as possible based on family preferences. Some people prefer email, some people prefer texting. So this system will allow for some of those preferences that weren't able to be accommodated in the past. And then we just really wanted to streamline the number of district tools that were being used. And we'll mention a couple of those that have been sunsetted. The majority will remain in place as we launch Parent Square and get a sense of, can we maybe streamline even more? But at this point, we really want to give people the flexibility to learn the new tool and time. We want to be sensitive to that as well. So we won't be making any immediate changes on a number of our systems. So how was Parent Square selected? Like I said, we gathered a lot of feedback from department heads, principals, admin pros, teachers, and like I said, the feedback we were getting from families as well, that were finding it challenging with some of our messaging. And from there, we identified the features that we thought were necessary in a new communication system. And I mentioned some of those: the translation, the texting, the reliability, all the things that would be important for a new vendor to have. And from there, Zach worked really closely with the technology team to vet a number of possible vendors that could meet our needs. From that, we did a lot of interviewing of those possible vendors and ultimately selected Parent Square as the best tool to meet our needs moving forward. Since then, we've connected with a number of districts that are successfully using Parent Square to find out what's working well, maybe where how would they do things differently, what could we learn from them. What we determined is that one of the most important things would be to roll this system out slowly, especially for staff. It's a very user-friendly system, and I think that our families probably aren't going to notice that much in terms of how it looks, other than the new features. We're hoping that they'll appreciate those right away. But we really wanted to give staff some time to kind of ease into it, to learn the tool, to use what they're currently using, while they are learning and embracing Parent Square. And I did mention School Messenger and Talking Points are two of those tools that we no longer have effective June 30th. School Messenger was our primary crisis communication tool. So anytime we had like a snow day or an event that required an emergency message, that was the system that we used. It had a very limited number of users, and Parent Square allows us to do that crisis communications. And Talking Points was another system that had a relatively low number of users, and that was what was being used primarily by our English learner teachers and a few other staff to translate messages between them and families. So again, that automated translation is an important new feature of the Parent Square system.
So as we went through the process of selecting Parent Square, some key features and benefits jumped out right away. One of our main goals was to create a one-stop shop for district communications. We talk about all the disjointed tools that are being used at a district level. That also makes it difficult for families to remain engaged when they have to go somewhere new for a message from their teacher versus the district versus another staff member. So Parent Square is a centralized tool for communication that will consolidate announcements, alerts, event details, and essential updates all in one location. Amy mentioned the text messaging, email, emergency voice alerts, and downloadable mobile app are some of the key features of Parent Square. Real-time messaging in multiple languages. Parent Square provides instant and multilingual communication between teachers, administrators, and families. And this is two-way translation as well. So a message is sent out from a teacher in English. It's received in the family's preferred language, which they have the ability to customize and select. They respond in that preferred language. It's translated back into English for the teacher. So that two-way translation capability and the translation across all different ways of communicating in Parent Square is really important. It's very easy to use, which will improve engagement. So it provides a user-friendly interface that's designed intentionally to look like a feed, as we're all very familiar with browsing different feeds of social media or online platforms. and families can customize the feed, their notifications in a way that works best for them. And we believe that creating a one-stop shop for communication with the ability to customize notifications will lead to greater academic success and engagement from families across the board. So some of the things that ParentSquare can do include, and are not limited to, calendar and RSVP, for RSVP and for events, volunteer signups. We've mentioned mass communications for snow days or other types of alerts that need to get out right away. Attendance callouts that are automated that sync up with our student information system, a mobile app that families can choose to download, appointment signups, so that includes technology pickups, perhaps even conferences, forms and permission slips, direct messaging between staff and families, that two-way translation, and classroom communication. And again, this is all in one centralized location for families to access. And then we have a short video that kind of gives a more of a high-level overview of what ParentSquare is.
ParentSquare. Our goal is to help you streamline your communication and parent engagement efforts across your schools. ParentSquare unifies communication for all stakeholders and is 100% parent-centric. That means that everyone is using the same platform, including teachers, principals, staff, admin, even the superintendent. Here, we're logged in as a principal at Lincoln Elementary School. As an admin in ParentSquare, I know exactly what's going on at my school and have full access and insight into all school-to-home communication. I can also send out messages to the entire school, or I can send to specific grade levels, classrooms, or groups. We integrate and sync on a nightly basis with your student information system to ensure accurate reach at all times and minimal effort for all users to get started. There are 3 main ways to communicate in ParentSquare: alerts and notifications, posts, and private chats. Let's start by sending out an emergency alert from the app. Traditional one-way alerts and emergency notifications deliver as phone calls, emails, text, or app notifications. You can also send alerts from the web portal. The second way to communicate in ParentSquare is via a post. Sending posts are for day-to-day communication, used by teachers for their classroom communication and administrators for school, or district-wide communication. A teacher has access to send messages to their classroom, grade level, and select groups only, and roles can be restricted even further. Posts include plenty of different features such as photos and files, links, and item requests. If you're sharing an event, you can quickly add it to your event calendar, which syncs with your existing calendars. You can also request RSVPs, ask for a few volunteers, or even set up online payments. You can also send forms electronically through ParentSquare. Paper permission slips often end up lost at the bottom of students' backpacks. Ensure your important forms are delivered directly to parents by adding a digital form with optional electronic signature to your post. You can also send out newsletters with our newsletter template option. We build everything in-house, so the look and feel will remain the same, whether you use one or all of our add-ons. A post will reach parents via email, text, or app notification, depending on their preference. The third main way to communicate in ParentSquare is via private chats, one-to-one or one-to-many. Parents can also initiate these private chats if they want to reach their child's teacher, and all communication is done via the private portal or app. Now that everyone at your school or district is using the same communication platform, we can gather statistics for you and help measure not only reach and delivery, but also parent engagement and usage. Also, admins can assign different roles with restricted access, so you know with confidence that your staff are communicating with the right group, class, and grade level at all times. A district account will have super user access available to communicate district-wide alerts and announcements, as well as insight and access to all site communication, including private chats. As you can see, there's no need to go outside of ParentSquare for any of your communication and parent engagement needs. All features are available at Lincoln Elementary, but you can start with as few or as many of our features as you'd like, since we offer 3 different packages. I hope you enjoyed learning more about ParentSquare. I look forward to discussing how we can help engage your school community.
Okay, so that's a really, really good overview of Parent Square as a whole. I'm going to run through a little bit of what the timeline looks like from an implementation point of view. So as Amy shared earlier, this is something that's been in the works for some time. We spent a good amount of time last year prior to this May-June timeline that's on the slide, really going through research and options, and ultimately coming to a decision on Parent Square as our preferred choice as a vendor partner. That gave us a great option last year as we entered kind of that spring or that winter pre-spring timeline to go through some vendor acquisition pieces and as the video showed, work with our student information system to connect Parent Square as a system into our system so we can do some of that data flow. So prior to May, we got all the systems set up and did all that work. And then as we entered into that May-June timeline, a big part of our work was to begin to work with our internal early adopter individuals so we can do some staff training and some early setup. So we spent some time with our groups doing that. And then we also built some communication to share both internally with our stakeholders, whether it be leadership and or teachers or other groups. So they had a good sense about what we were doing, what it was going to look like, and how it was going to play out over the summer. As we entered into the June and July timeline, we had a couple groups who were willing to join into a pilot group. Our transportation group and our summer learning program jumped onto Parent Square, and they were able to use it kind of in production. And it was a great opportunity, again, as a district for us to take the system, run it through some tests, and get some individuals engaged with this so we can learn from the system and be able to improve it as we went. We also have done a lot of different work around communicating, again, the fact that a new system's coming out in the August timeline. So we've produced some of those communications, and we're going to send one out to families here soon that this new tool set will be released here in August. Last week, as you may have seen, there was a big global IT outage. So that gave us a little bit of an opportunity to use Parent Square as our primary tool set. It just so happened that the other tool that we had in the district was not functioning at that time. So we did go live with it last week. We built some communication and we put that out to our internal user groups. And that was successful. And I would say from our use of it, it really did hit all those different areas. It was easy to use. We were able to get into the system and create a communication and distribute it very quickly, and then look at some of that data on the back end to see how well the reach was. So June, July is really about preparation and readiness for August and the rest of the year. So as we're looking forward to August, I think one of our big goals is, again, to have Parent Square be adopted as a primary communication tool in the district. We do recognize and realize that there's going to be some other tools out in the district that will be used here and there, but we really want to consolidate the use of our big primary tool sets into this one system. So as we get into back to school communications and newsletters and school to home communication, Parent Square will be the delivery of that. We'll spend a lot of time in work and effort around training and sitting with our principals, our admin teams, our admin pros, individuals who use the system to get it prepped and ready to deliver those communications out to our families and parents and guardians. And then really work with the buildings either in staff meetings or side to side, hip to hip with some of the individuals who are going to use it so they can feel more comfortable with the system, be able to get into all those different tool sets to get that information out and be and feel really confident through the use of it. If you were to follow Zach and others around on the team last week or in the coming weeks, you'll see him, as he mentioned, going out and really working on doing training and staff development around the tool. And I think that'll be a big part of our work here in the next couple months is to get all of our different user groups up on the tool, feeling really comfortable about getting in and getting things out the door. In this timeline, the August to June is really long. So we recognize and realize there's a lot of things that are going on in the organization. And while this is a priority and we want to make sure that it's well positioned and well deployed, we know there's some other things that are going on. So everybody's going to start at a different place. We know we have to get some things ready and ready to go for some of those back to school communications. But we also know, like our teacher group, they have some things on their plates that we'll try to meet them where they are. We'll get them in and be really cognizant and mindful about having them ready for the rollout. So it's a long view. We'll be working on it all year, and we'll work towards continuous improvement as we go. As far as quotes from other districts, as you kind of look at different systems that are out there, either nationally or locally, you'll find a lot of these same things said about Parent Square. When we chose a vendor and a partner, we want somebody who's going to come in, be really easy to use, be really robust from a system point of view so they can do what we needed to do. Want them to be operational, obviously, which they were able to prove that fact last week. And then ultimately, we want to be able to take our communication and deliver that through multiple means in a really successful way through multiple languages through the system. So these are some quotes from other districts who have used it. There's some locally that you'll see that we're in good We have a lot of districts around us who are using the tool as well. So we'll have some partners that we can work with to use and better both our deployment and the use of the system overall. So with that, I think we'll open it up to any kind of questions or feedback that you have around Parent Square and the implementation of it.
Well, thank you, Amy, Zach, and Wade. Before I turn it over to my colleagues for questions, I have a quick comment. How different the communications was 41 plus years ago when I came to the US. Not only was the phone calls were expensive, we had to go through operator assisted calls, just incredibly slow and bad. And I think communication is the biggest tool that has made this world so small, right? It's just so much better now than it used to be. And I think we are at the forefront of many school districts because of our focus and effort on the way we communicate. So thank you all of you. Board colleagues, any questions? Sheila? Yeah.
This looks like it has a lot of great features, and I'm looking forward to it as a parent. I know that this is for communication, and we have some other portals that we use as parents, Skyward and ePay. Yeah. So I know that this isn't to replace those, but are there plans to integrate them or provide links somehow so they're easier to access or anything?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So this is obviously not a one-stop shop for all educational tools that we have in the district. And we recognize that as we were looking at it, and we really tried to hone it in as here's a communication tool with a lot of different features and functions that we thought would meet the needs of the district. So I think that's a long-term work, like how do you integrate things and how systems talk. And ultimately, I think it's really, really hard to get a one-stop shop for everything. When you look at tools like this or Skyward you mentioned or other pay systems, they do what they do really well. And it's hard to get just enough of those pieces and parts into other systems. I think this one has a lot of opportunity. And I think we're working hard to try to consolidate some of those resources as much as possible. But kind of as I mentioned, we have to recognize that if you're in Canvas and you're building coursework and you're communicating now with students, that's still going to exist in the system, and that's not necessarily going to go away. So I think it's about focus on what the tool is used for, try to consolidate as much as we can, try to use like the resources that are at our disposal, and just try to continue to do better as we go along. Good question.
Well, one thing I'll add quick is you mentioned Skyward and ePay, and I think one thing I appreciate about Parent Square as we're vetting them is they understand what they do well and understand where their limitations are. So a really easy example is there's a feature in Parent Square that's it's simply links, and we can add quick links to other district platforms that people can access from that main dashboard. So Parent Square, maybe we're not going to use it for payments, at least right away. Okay, we have a link to ePay. So it's about making it easier for families to get the information they need. So if there's a newsletter that's sent out, it's going to ePay and pay whatever. There's a quick link that they can access right away, and the same with Skyward. So it's understanding they do a really good job at we do what we do really well, understand where our limitations are, but how we make this easier for families. And I think it's a really good system for that.
Yeah, so just the extension of that question, are we thinking about extending audience to PTO, athletic meetings, communication, or is it strictly right now with students and teachers?
There are external groups that other districts use the platform with. So think of coaches, youth sports organizations, clubs that at some point there could be use in Parent Square. I think we're intentionally rolling it out at a more limited basis for staff and families, but they do have the ability to incorporate some of these community groups as well.
I think that would be of great help. And not to sound tech nerdy, but going back to her question on links, is this pre-password, post-password? So if you add links, do we have to log in again, or is it single sign-on?
On that specific question, it would likely not be single sign-on. So if we're adding a link into ePay per that example, you'd have to log into ePay.
Okay.
So I think, and then that'll be an opportunity, I think, especially on the pay. And you saw in the video that there's a pay option here. That's a whole other, sequence of systems and services we need to look at.
Yeah, and especially given it has mobile application.
Yeah.
If there is a way for us to do SSO, I think that'll be of great help. So, and then one last question is around the data privacy and governance. Are we exchanging any data with the vendor, or is it stays with us just sort of using applications through APIs, or do we actually exchange our data with the vendor?
Yeah, really good question. We do exchange data with the vendor. So we do have them hooked up to certain data, either from the student information system and or from our HR systems. We pull that data in. So that's part of the contract. That's part of the agreement, and part of some of our data security practices.
So in terms of data governance, data security, privacy, we are all
Yes.
covered through our contracts.
Correct. Good question.
I agree with Sheila. This looks really exciting, and I like a one-stop shop a lot. And I know it's not everything all in one spot. You had mentioned something about transportation. Who plays into that?
Another good question. So transportation is contracted services with the district today. So the pilot that we did with them during summer learning was really to get our bus route information into the system. So that's a primary use that they had from our previous system now into this. So they use it if a bus route was late, for example. So we're able to slice and dice some of the data that we just referred to in the system to identify here's a group of students and or families or guardians who need to be notified because of a late bus, as an example. So that's a way in which that they'd use the system.
That's going to be really useful, actually, especially in the wintertime.
And just to be clear, now we're not taking away the bus link system that we already have. Still part of a different system, but this allows us to communicate some of those key factors.
Great, thank you. I have one more question that's PTA specific. Are signups for PTAs going to be available, or is that still going to need to be something that's external?
It's a good question. I think that falls into the kind of the later development. We have talked to some districts who have used this for communication purposes for signups for these parent-teacher organizations. I think our goal is let's get staff on board, let's get our families on board, and then see where we can take it from there. I think there are some features that show a lot of promise for that engagement, but I think that is kind of a later phase development for us.
Sounds good, thank you.
So you talked about some of the predecessors to Parent Square, being, School Messenger, Talking Points, and whatnot. And so, just in terms of ease of accessibility, so families would have an account with those programs, and then do those same accounts carry over into Parent Square, or will they have to create a new account?
So the systems you mentioned, School Messenger, Talking Points, some of our district communication through our website vendor Finalsite, those specific systems, parents do not have an account. They receive the communication. It's like a one-way communication through email. School Messenger can be through SMS or text. So the difference here is Parent Square does allow families to log into an account, create an account, and it's already synced up with our student information system. So the first time you go to log in as a parent or guardian, it'll recognize your email or phone and say, basically go through a confirmation process, send you a code to your phone, send you a code to your email. And so it'll allow more for an interactive piece, that direct messaging with staff, with teachers. And then there's some learning management systems, Canvas, Seesaw, those will remain, but those are a little more interactive in terms of families having an account. So one of the key differences, as I mentioned, is families are going to be invited to log in, create an account, download a mobile app, view on a dashboard. But I think it's important to mention they don't have to do that. They still are going to receive communication through email, through text, through voice, without having to go in and create an account. So it's kind of meeting parents or guardians where they are. If they prefer to log in and create an account, they can, but they're still going to receive important communication if it's necessary. Thank you.
I have a couple questions. One of them is how many languages it is capable of translating?
There's about 75 languages.
Wow. And to what degree is the quality of translation? Because to be honest, in the past, I used to help teachers to translate. And when I one time teacher used Google Translate, it sounds separately, words sound good, but when you read it as a language carrier, it sounds, to be honest, like I mean, it doesn't make sense. If you go deeper, sometimes there can be that kind of miscommunication. Obviously, technology is changing. What do you know about that part?
Yeah, it's a great question. So the initial translation is through Google Translate. We do have the ability to go in and tweak the translations, and that's something we envision. We have two family liaisons that work for our equity and inclusion department that are native Spanish speaking or Somali speaking. So if there was an important message we knew we were going to send out, we could have them go into the system and tweak the translation. Now, obviously, we don't have like 75 translators in those native languages, but the initial translation is done through Google Translate.
Okay, thank you. And second one is, if I can, you mentioned about appointment signups and mentioned about conference. Is it going to be teacher-parent? Is it going to be used for teacher-parent conference sign-up? That particular.
Yeah, it's a good question. Right now, parent-teacher conference sign-up is done through Skyward, and that is the plan as of now going forward. We have, as we've gone through the process of presenting this to some principals and office staff at schools, they've expressed interest in the ease of use in the appointment sign-up in the system. So I think it's going to be, to some degree, it could be up to the school on what they want to manage in terms of conference sign-up.
In the past, to be honest, as a parent, I experienced, especially if you have multiple kids in the same even building, I had to do mental math and quick enough because slots were taken quickly. Last year, I really enjoyed through High School Hub, I believe, that was doing pretty good math for me, so to speak. It was even saying, you already took this time, you cannot take this time for your second child kind of thing. It was very useful because in the past, I had to lay out literally like a planogram. Okay, I'm using this time for this, time for that one kind of thing. So I'm hoping that you will have before major first parent-teacher conference, you will have a chance to run it, because at one time I think we had a huge hiccup, and when you're busy, when you put everything like 8 a.m., you come earlier to work, try to log in, and all of a sudden it doesn't work. It means that you spend so much time and no results kind of thing. And then obviously after work, you try to sign up. Being Wayzata, parents are very involved. Looks like all of a sudden you are finding you have only here and there left kind of experience. So what is the plan so that we're not going to have that kind of hiccup with this system?
One of the pieces that I think could help with alleviating some confusion for families is, since everything is integrated with our student information system, if you were to do a conference sign-up or send out a form for a permission slip or an RSVP, the student data is synced into the system. So when you go to sign up for a conference, if you have a student at Birchview Elementary, when you get the message, there's a drop down and you select your student. So there's no data entry. So you just select your student and that information is saved into the system when you sign up for a conference slot. And it's really easy to maintain some of that information as you get multiple signups from different schools. It's all embedded in the system, the student ID and everything. So hopefully that will help ease some of the difficulties in what am I signing up for and entering the information as far as reducing the data entry piece.
Hey, just out of curiosity, from ongoing maintenance standpoint, how much do you guys expect or anticipate the data management aspect? So in that video, there were roles. So, you have by grade, by communication preference, and that might change every year. So is this something what we experience today? And again, it's kind of like similar experience with the new tool, or with new tool, you are expecting more ongoing maintenance and managing these roles and preferences, all of that? Is there increased effort?
Yeah, really good question. Part of what I spoke to of the winter to spring timeline, we've done all that mapping, and it's mapping that's pretty typical to other systems that we have. Okay. So, I mean, they all have their little quirks and their little tweaks, but once you get the mapping set up, it really just becomes a part of maintenance of it. Something there could be an issue with the delivery of it, and we might have to jump in on that, and then or the transition from year to year where you do a little bit of cleanup or other mapping. But yeah, it's kind of a set it and forget it and let it run. So that part's easy, and I think that's again one of those areas that delivers a little bit of value. Thinking about like from a classroom point of view, your teacher, all your kids are already in there. They're already in their sections. They're already in their areas. So it gives them a little bit of an easier way to slice and dice and really target the communication to the right kids at the right time or the right families at the right time.
So really that initial configuration you would do when you move from one system to another,
Yep.
But ongoing maintenance, it's similar to what we have today, plus the outcome is better. So
agree. And it allowed us to consolidate some systems too. So instead of having multiple systems do this, we're able to collapse a couple into one at time in that process. And again, we have to secure the data at the end from vendor to vendor. So that does lower our risk as well.
got it. Thanks.
Yeah, really good question. Thank you.
So my understanding is that the translation piece was not available or is not available in the existing system, but when we move over to the new tool. So I think that speaks to a lot about our desire and the focus on inclusion, because the diversity in this district is growing by leaps and bounds. So kudos for that. I have two questions. There are about 13,000 students, so let's say 20,000 plus parents and guardians who would have access to these. Not everybody is technology savvy. If I see a new app or new system, I get scared. So I'm sure there are parents that are not comfortable initially, at least. So how do you make sure that these parents or guardians are adapting as quickly as possible? And do you have any idea how quickly they are doing that?
It's a good question. I think, as I mentioned earlier, families will still receive communication if they choose not to engage with some of the extra features, such as a mobile app or a dashboard. So it's laid out in a similar format as we're sending out communication now, branded templates. This is from the high school. This is from the district. This is from whatever elementary school. So I think that's really important. We also built out a public-facing webpage that we will launch that has resources for families on how to do specific things, how to sign in, how to access class information, how to send a direct message to their son or daughter's or child's teacher. So just making sure that they have the resources they need to be successful. And I guess anecdotally, as we've gone through training with some schools and departments, the feedback that we've gotten overwhelmingly is, wow, this is really easy to use. And I think that's been important for us as we think about rolling it out to staff and ultimately rolling it out to families. So just trying to get as many resources in front of them as possible to make sure they can participate in as much or as little as they choose.
Okay, thank you. And one last question I have. You can say I don't know, or we don't know if you don't know. What's the approximate cost of this system versus what we have used in the past?
Off the top of my head, I'll say I don't know specifically. The cost is covered within the technology levy, so this is a technology levy expense. We consolidated 2 tool sets into the system, so those 2 would be at a wash. And I think if anything, we might have acquired 1/3 additional cost for the different bells and features. So overall, I think we have a great value and some reduced costs in some other areas.
Wonderful. That's the word I was looking for. The value is what we look at, right? Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Any other questions?
I also wanted to add that we've been working closely with our equity and inclusion and teaching and learning departments to both working closely with our family liaisons and the family partnership leads in the buildings to be able to help families that maybe need some additional support in using the new tool and our technology integration. Am I getting that right? So we've got some extra staff to help with staff as well to get them comfortable. So we've put those supports in place too.
Thank you. If there are no other questions, thank you, Amy, Zach, and Wade. Appreciate your coming here and presenting this to us. And good luck with the system. Okay, so there are no teaching and learning reports today, so we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the Human Services Reports. Executive Director Stacy Voss will give us a calendar update for the year 2024-25. Stacy.
Good afternoon, Chair Sahoni and members of the board. Mine is quick today. Just FYI, we've had to make 2 adjustments to our 24-25 calendar. One mandated by legislation, so we have to do it. We just have to pick the date. And the other one, in response to making some calendar changes, I was told or asked if I could also throw in this calendar change so that we have good communication, good and timely communication with our parents. So the first change would be impacting our students K through 5, so all of our elementary schools. And this is a legislative action based upon the READ Act. Mandates and basically based upon some feedback that they received, the legislators determined that teachers completing the READ Act would have 5.5 or basically a full day with no students in which to complete that training, which we're very supportive of. So we have had conversations and feel that Monday after MEA would be prime time to offer that day to our teachers to complete that work. So that would be October 21st, that none of our elementary students, so that's K through 5, would be in session. It would be treated very similarly to our planning days that we already have enacted. So we have that day, and then on February 13th, 2025, our part-day preschool students would not be reporting because we have had a change in enrollment, and due to the high number of parent-teacher conferences that we have, we need that additional day to conduct those very important meetings with our parents. So the updated calendar will be shared and presented to you August 12th, so you can officially vote on those calendar changes, but wanted to bring this to your attention so you could ask questions today and be comfortable with making that vote at the August 12th board meeting. So questions?
Thank you, Stacy. Any questions, colleagues? Heidi, yes?
Okay, so as we think about MEA, that means K through 5 will have Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday off, correct?
Correct,
Okay.
yes.
And then everybody else, 6 through 12, is in session that Monday, so they have 5 days instead of 6 days continuous.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
And just as kind of a reminder to piggyback on that, we're kind of limited to the amount or the time that we can offer that day. Remember, in September, we have a flex day. October, we have conferences along with this. And then November 8th is the date that they already have to have the training done. So we're kind of limited to the days that we could pick. So thanks for bringing that up and allowing me to add that additional piece of information.
So Stacy, these two changes will have no effect on the student contact days, holidays, nothing else in the calendar will be affected, is that
Correct. Yes.
Yes, Vinita.
I'm hoping after using that day, at least we're going to have very highly trained teachers, and our kids will get obviously advantage out of it. But my question is, after this year, next year, do you anticipate that we will abandon that kind of practice as Flex Day and all? Because I understand for school district it might be money saving, but I can see that for parents it's not money saving at all, because parents are also working, and then they have to find out other ways they have to take care of the kids during that time.
Correct. That's a calendar committee conversation. So the calendar committee determines those, and our contracts determine planning days and professional development days. So this conversation doesn't impact what you're talking about because we don't have a choice in this. The legislators have said we have to offer this as a day to our teachers.
But I guess that I can ask next time, or if it's okay to ask right now, about specifically when Flex Days, what we started using after COVID era. COVID is done. My question is, do you foresee that we will abandon this practice, and when do you think that we will abandon this practice of using additional days as at-home learning or Flex Day? Majority, at least with elementary kids, parents, I think, understand not that much of learning is happening at home when parents are working.
So I can just share my opinion because I haven't consulted or asked beyond myself here at this point. I anticipate that the Flex Days will continue because teachers need professional development and support as the students who come to us are more needing of additional services. I think teachers will share with you in conversations that they're feeling that they need more support to address all of the needs that our students are bringing to school. And so I don't see the need for helping teachers be better in the classroom going away anytime soon. But that's just my opinion. Again, we solicit a lot of input from our teachers through the calendar committee. We did survey our parents, and while they did share that they wanted a reduction in the number of days that their children were not at school, we also cannot eliminate those days in order to do the work to support our teachers in the challenging positions that they have. Excuse me.
Thank you.
Yeah, Heidi, go ahead.
Can I ask a follow-up to that question as well, as you're sipping your water? My question is, during teacher negotiations, is that a part of negotiations of how much time they get for training and development?
It is a part of their calendar, in that the part that's negotiated there is we have the 172 student days and then the 184 days for teachers. The other part that's negotiated are planning days. So those are those K-5 days in which teachers at the elementary levels are given days in which to plan to compensate for the PLC time that our secondary teachers have in their school day.
I think if I can add a little bit to the flex and those PD days too, and where I would agree that I don't see those decreasing is we have new math standards coming. We'll continue with the reading. We have new social studies. And so those flex learning days are when we implement that curriculum and work with our teachers throughout that time to make that work. It's not a cost savings to us because we're paying our teachers, so there's no cost savings in this. And In reality, those are days that we were always pulling teachers out. The old model was that we pulled them out during the school day. Like we might pull all third grade teachers on Tuesday and we had subs for that. And then Wednesday we would pull all third grade teachers and we would have subs for that. And so really the teacher's time out of the classroom away from the students was very similar. And so feedback we've gotten is it's hard to have, and we do have a sub shortage, but it's also hard to have all those subs in the building and plan for that. So instead of doing that model, we have gone to those 2 flex days to try to be consistent. And it also allows us to do that training across grade levels so that it's not just first grade only with first grade, but they can be talking to kindergarten and second grade on how that curriculum transitions. So it's really important work if we're going to, if we remember our teachers are our #1 influencer on our student outcomes. So we really need to make sure we're investing in those teachers as well.
All right, thank you, Stacy. Moving on to the next item on the agenda, which is the Finance and Operations Report. Executive Director Scott Lesage could not be present today, so Director of Facilities and Transportation John Deutsch and Director of Finance David Draskowicz will give us an update on the LTFM plan.
Sahoni board members, we're in front of you to just present our LTFM 10-year plan. We have a presentation we will go through, and this is similar to the presentation from April. At the end, we'll ask questions, and then after that, we will then ask for a special session in which to approve it, which is part of the requirement that we have in front of us. So LTFM, or long-term facility maintenance. The agenda that we're going to talk about is we'll talk about what it is. We'll talk about basically the annual updates. We will look at our 10-year revenue and expenditures. We'll talk next steps and then open it up to questions. Long-term facility maintenance is a program which falls under state statute that allows for districts to levy for revenues for projects that will basically prevent further erosion of facilities, looks at increasing accessibility in our buildings, health and safety, environmental health and safety falls in this. And then it also looks at the need to pay general obligation bonds. Annual requirement. We're required on an annual basis to update our 10-year plan, look at a 3 to 5 year plan, and then move forward with that submits to Department of Education, Commissioner at Department of Education, that you would then take action on, and then there's a statement of assurances that says that we have come forward, we've done our due diligence, and that everyone agrees with the direction that we're moving in. Historically, this has been called alternative facilities. And it used to be reserved only for the largest districts in the state that qualified either based on age and square footage. And there were 2 different avenues or 2 different parameters that looked at. It was looked at as how much square foot and average age of buildings. It used to be 1.5 million square feet at an average age of 35 years. Now all districts qualify for long-term facility maintenance. To qualify, we must, like I said, have board approval and approved and sent to the Commissioner of Education. As we look at long-term facility maintenance, there's items called UFARS codes, UFARS finance codes. Really what these are is these are just general areas of which the funding or which projects can fall under. The ones on your left, you will notice a lot of those are health and safety related. 367 is the first one that really falls into the long-term facility maintenance. That's the accessibility. Then the ones on the right look at just different building components of which funding can be used for. So LTF revenue, like I said, can be used for the following purposes: deferred capital projects that further prevent erosion of our facilities, increase accessibility, any project that falls under the health and safety statute of 123B57. And then as of FY25, we are allowed to use money for remodeling of gender neutral single-use restrooms at our facilities. It cannot be used for new facilities, remodeling of existing facilities, purchase of portable classrooms, things of that nature. It also cannot be used to finance a lease purchase agreement. It also cannot be used for energy efficiency projects, of which would be the primary focus of those. And then the last one, violence prevention, facility security, ergonomics, and emergency communication devices. One thing that we wanted to explain is as we come up with our projects, we really look at 6 different items that we focus on to figure out where projects should fall and when we should do them. We just look at facility needs forecasting, basically, well, how are our facilities doing? Look at capital request meetings that we have with our principals or building leaders. We look at age versus life expectancy of different building materials. We have a full-blown work order system, so we will also track how much work, how many work orders are we receiving on certain things. We do send out surveys, whether we do them internally or we hire engineers to do it. And then also the historical data of maintenance costs. An example of that would be is if I have a roof where I'm spending a lot of money just fixing leaks, it's probably time for that roof to be just full-blown replaced. The district is operating on a 10-year plan since 2010. Over the last 10 years, we have seen anywhere from $90 to $100 million in long-term facility maintenance projects. We've always targeted to do somewhere between $8 and $16 million a year. That's been kind of a moving target based on we may have projects that we do not complete because of use of our facilities over the summer, or just maybe something else happens. We may find a much cheaper fix or a solution that doesn't cost a complete replacement. So our spreadsheet looked at it. We've provided our spreadsheet. We are initially calculating average ages of buildings and project cost. It is largely based on the per pupil driven formula. And we are considered a 1A district, which basically, because we were in the program before they opened up to all other school districts, we actually get the credit of where we have or what the program was before. So there's some limitations that other districts have in terms of what they're doing. I will turn it over to Mr. Draskovich for this part.
So this slide shows that the 10-year LTFM revenue plan, we're going for 2026. That is $15,082,680, and it's not a complete 15 million. It's a little above because we have to include the intermediate district 287, which levies through their surrounding districts that are part of their partnership. After about 3 years, it kind of becomes closer guess because, as you know, we'll come back with this plan every year and we'll revise it as we get to that closer to those next fiscal years. The 10-year expenditure plan sheet contains thank you, John, contains the school district's best estimate of the costs that incur for the 10 fiscal years. The expenditure plan reflects how the district will be using the revenue to best meet the facility needs, which is why we have our facilities teams and goes through that process of looking at what we need to update and replace in our district. The 10-year expenditure plan shows the health and safety program maintenance, accessibility expenditures are reasonable, and that the school district is planning deferred maintenance projects appropriate for the age and condition of the school buildings. Wayzata Public Schools' 10-year expenditure plan is updated by the district on an annual basis and is based on updated information, plan changes, and priorities. So the next slide is the 10-year LTFM plan. What you'll see is it's awfully small, 2026. The expenditures will match the revenues, so you'll see $15,082,680. It's relatively small. But after that, it becomes kind of the next 3 years are a little bit closer. We have a better idea what's going on with those 3 fiscal years. After that, it becomes kind of a guess, and then we come to the school board every year to update those. So the next steps, administration will submit for approval for the FY26 budget and update annual LTFM 10-year plan. And then we will submit the required documents to MDE by July 31st, 2024. And then the next bullet point, school board resolution, statement of assurances is signed by superintendent, and then FY26 LTFM 10-year expenditure and revenue plan.
All right, thank you, John and Dave. Board colleagues, any questions?
Hey, so when you look at year-over-year budget and actuals, there could be difference because, you know, work doesn't get completed for whatever reason and it spills over next year and so on. So at what point in time you kind of tally the overall budget? Is it like over 10-year period, rolling 5 years? How does that work?
So here's where we differ. I mean, and this is where this comes and this is challenging. You know, the fiscal year starts July 1. So fiscal year starts right in the middle of all construction projects. So if I were to wait till July 1, that would give me literally 6 weeks to do all the work. So when my team is doing these projects, we look at it by a project budget. And we don't necessarily look at it as a fiscal year until we're doing it. And then that's when David's team comes in. So we actually look at it as a 3-year. It's a 3-year. It's the current year, the year before, and the year after. Okay. And that 3 years is just kind of this rolling 3 years. So we are every year looking at it. It's just the current year becomes last year, and then, you know, that piece of it. That's really where we're going. So one of the questions we've had is that $90 to $100 million. That doesn't seem to make sense when you look at how much we're spending or how much we're asking for every year. And that is specifically because of that rolling budget, the way that it is that there are years that we are not able to get work accomplished, whether it's basically contractor availability, whether it's material availability, which we've been going through, or it's just, is the school, you know, able for us to do this? What is happening at those buildings? Every year in the spring or winter, spring, we have discussions about what's happening in our facilities. And every year when we look at the elementary schools and how we use our elementary schools in the summer programming and the Wayzata Kids childcare program and things like that, we are able to maybe close 3 buildings a year. And then the other buildings, we're working around programs that are in there. And that really takes a toll on the work that we're doing, because you may say, okay, you can close 3 buildings, do everything you can in those 3 buildings. We're still limited by time. We're still limited by the resource, by human resource and things of that nature. So I think that's the challenge that we come up with. And that's what happens is it's every 3 years.
Right.
So that's a great question.
So when you think of a project, is it by building? Is it sort of, you know, within that building, what you can accomplish? So where I'm getting with that is, it sounds like you manage project manage budget at the project level. How we roll it up, whether it is 3 years, 10 years, that's a different science. But just from money standpoint, you look at individual project and make sure what our estimates are, where our actuals are, and we don't have any surprises. Is that fair?
Yeah, we actually look at our project budgets are by building or they're by UFARS code. And sometimes we have projects that'll be multiple buildings or multiple UFARS codes.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And so that's the challenging. We will package them together and how we think it makes sense.
Okay. But individual unit of work, which is a project, that's where you track what was your estimates versus actual. So we don't have to wait for 3 years to know, hey, I'm out of budget or I'm running over or under. Okay.
Nope.
Okay. And then the last question is, so the category 2 and category 3A, it is obviously for safety purposes, but there is nothing for 10 years in those categories. Is that normal, or if something pops up 3 years, 4 years down the line, would we be able to shift numbers between other categories, or these are like lock and loaded?
Can you repeat that? Just
so the spreadsheet, expenditure spreadsheet, so the category 2 and category 3A, and even I think 3B, there were like no items at all. So there is no cost, no expenditure. So is that like by design, or will we have ability to move dollars if we think something is required next year, year after?
Yeah, you'll be able to when you do update it. So category 2 in category 2 is what you talked about, was asbestos removal of, encapsulated fire safety, indoor health quality. I guess if we were to hit those, we're not planning on hitting any of those right now.
Okay.
And so if we were, we will update those in the future.
Yep, and we are able to move. Those categories have parameters, like it goes from 1A to 2A depending on the cost. When you look at asbestos removal, fire life safety, and indoor air quality, most of those we've already accomplished. So we're not doing large scale projects. These are called out so that MDE actually specifically pulls those projects, and then they have different requirements. They have engineering sign-offs that have to be done, and this page 7 document that requires that. We're a little bit past that in terms of having to do that. We also, because we are a 1A district, some of our HVAC or indoor air quality projects would fall under 380 rather than 366. Because we're not doing them for indoor air quality purposes. We're up to speed meeting today's ASHRAE standards. We're actually replacing like equipment for equipment.
Okay.
So that's the difference.
Okay.
Great question.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Amy, can you go to slide 3, please? Okay. I think somebody talks about, the last bullet, by board resolution to transfer money from the general fund reserve for LTFM to the debt redemption fund to pay the amounts needed on general obligation bonds issued. Have we ever done that? Has the school board ever been asked to vote that you know of?
No, we haven't issued bonds for the LTFM program or transferred anything to cover debt.
Okay, good. And then slide 4, the next one. The first bullet there. Can you explain the annual 3 and 5 year updates? What exactly are you talking about?
That's a little bit of what I was talking about those rolling projects and things like that.
Okay.
The other piece of it is virtually impossible for us to submit a 10-year budget that's
right.
So those are just kind of benchmarks of what we have going forward.
Okay.
That language specific really is for some of the newer districts that are just getting in the program. So there's a little bit more reporting requirements that they have as they go through it.
Okay. The third question then is, once it gets approved by the board, then Superintendent Anderson signs it, sends it over to the commissioner. Do you foresee any reason if we later on in the special meeting, if we approve the budget and it's submitted to the Department of Education, do you foresee anything that they might come back with and say, oh, you have to do this, you have to do that, change this or change that at this point?
No.
Okay. If you did, you would tell us, right? You would already include that in there.
Absolutely. No. This program has really become more at the school district level in terms of the approval process.
Okay.
That's why it's that's why you ask for formal approval, because it is the school district's responsibility to meet those, meet the requirements and that of the state statute. So.
And then the last question I have is, I'm not trying to change anything or, put a wrench in the budget plan that you already have, but I have a question, a nagging thing that has been nagging me since that one parent came and spoke about his wheelchair accessed child and the need for wheelchair accessible equipment in playgrounds, in addition to just being able to go to the playgrounds and not be able to do anything. UFARS code 367, I think, is what would be pertinent to that. And one of the roles that the board plays, very important role that school boards typically play, is advocacy in the legislature. Do you think we might need advocacy in the legislature to have some funds, more increased funds from the LTFM budget for equipment like that? Would that help?
I think it's always good to advocate for the LTFM and that program. One challenge that you will have is, we've talked about this, but what is accessible and what is considered by state statute to be accessible and what is by actual operation to be accessible. And I think that's the challenge right now that you will come into. We do focus on accessibility in a lot of what we do. The other piece of that state statute or that requirement of accessibility and what is accessible is constantly changing. We have buildings in our district that were built in the 50s, 60s, 70s that don't meet the accessibility standards of what we have today. So we do what's called a transition plan, where where you have issues or where you may not meet it, and you make sure that all your buildings have at least like experiences that allow a student that may have accessibility or mobility issues like that. So absolutely. I will tell you that long-term facility maintenance is, when it became a program, was focused inside the building or of the building and inside the building. Playgrounds, it's still a little bit of a different area because you could also go to your play fields and talk about those being accessible in terms of, it's just where do you go? So our ADA plan, our ADA transition plan is just constantly making improvements everywhere we go. And so that's basically what we're doing. But I would always advocate for that.
Sure. And advocacy, a big part of advocacy is educating the legislators, obviously, right? So that's why I asked you if that is something that the advocates can do. Maybe the legislatures will listen, and maybe they will, put something in a bill form where accessible playgrounds, not just, have the kid go on a wheelchair and watch everybody else play, but be able to do, go and play themselves, is a part of the LTFM budget. So just a curiosity question. Thank you, John. Thank you. Yes. Anyone else? Valentina? Yeah.
Yes, I have a question. Help me understand, please. Maybe I'm not understanding very well. So my question is, I'm very happy that we are maintaining. For example, if something is leaking, it's much more easier cost-wise and all to fix it instead of waiting when it is becoming a bigger problem. So in this case, I appreciated that it is happening. But when I'm looking at the numbers, like specifically in April, I believe we received information that we spent about, from 2010, we started participating, am I right? Until this day, we spent about 100 million, am I right?
Yeah, it's a general number.
So it's about over 7 million a year.
It could be a little bit more. I think we're talking in generalities in terms of.
And obviously, sometimes you can, depending on weather or, labor, especially obviously we had in cost one. Some years you might be spending less. Sometimes some years you might be spending more. Last time in April, I remember the numbers we received. It was we sometimes spending about $8 to $12 million. Right now, I saw that it is $8 to $16 million. And looks like from today, we're asking for more. During committee meeting, I heard that, yes, we obviously have inflation, but labor cost more. But it sounds like, let's say on average, if it is about 8 million, and about right now we're asking about 15. So we are asking, quite what is affecting other than, inflation, is it that high then?
Some of that is. I also think that we've had 2 significant bond issuances since we've, during that time frame. So there were a couple of years where they're just, again, as we're building buildings, putting on additions, things like that. there's times where the LTFM dollars, either were dedicated somewhere else or maybe those projects were funded under different things. So I think we're talking just in kind of a general sense in terms of what we've spent. I don't think that we were getting specific, but yeah, it has been anywhere from 8 to 10 to 12 to 15 to 16 to 13. Like, it depends on basically our finance department will look at our levy authority, we'll look at our tax impact and things like that and kind of balance that. The other part of it is the size of projects, again, in terms of what we're doing, when we're doing. We have not been this high in LTFM over the past couple of years, I don't feel, partly because we had a very large amount of indoor air quality or ventilation type projects, and now we're just kind of getting back to it. But there's been other funding sources that we've been able to use for parking lots and things like that really have affected LTFM dollars too. So.
But I think for air quality, again, tell me if I'm wrong, I believe you were able, at least many schools since COVID era, it had been pressed, obviously, that schools have to do something about quality of air. So I think that schools were using ESSER funds for that, isn't it? To change ventilations and...
We did not have to do anything to our ventilation systems because back in 2011 to about 2016, 17, we had done all this work. We had brought the correct amount of outside air. We have the correct filters in our systems. We have all of that. So we did not.
So we didn't need even to spend that money. So based on hearing that you are so good at maintaining facilities, and other than inflation, labor cost, obviously more. Why is it still higher?
Scott reminded me to touch base on this because it was really important that Wall did a study, if I remember this correctly, that it would cost us $20 million just to maintain what we have within our district. And so the 17 is not really even close to where we need to maintain everything. So we're just touching the clip of it. So as we get into it and we can shut down buildings when we can, we'd like to get closer to a $20 million because that would actually be maintaining the district to where it needs to be.
And that's a $20 million annually. Yeah. Is kind of projected based on the facility study and the work that Wald and Krause Anderson does within our district, correct?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
The other piece that I can explain is if you think about the year that we're in, 2024, but you think about when we started the program in 2011, look at the age of the high school. I mean, the high school is this big building that's sitting there. Up until about now, we didn't have to do much at the high school. We weren't planning for a lot. We did some things, right? But your carpet, your paint, your things like that are 10, 12, 15 years old. You're not too concerned about at that point when you have buildings that were built in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. But that building now is coming online, and we are doing significant mechanical repairs, things like that as necessary. A boiler plant at the high school is probably one of those larger projects that's going to be coming online. So that's really what drives this. In terms of when we're doing it, we look at that age and life expectancy piece, and that's coming on.
Buildings are getting older.
Your buildings are getting older, and we have more square footage.
Yeah,
I mean, we're up to over 2 million square foot, where when we started here, we were at 1.6, I think, or something like that. So I mean, we're continually getting bigger, and that's going to continually drive the cost of what you need to do because things are getting deferred in year to year.
Thank you for explanation.
So one quick question, John and David. Does this fund have a fund balance? This is an assigned fund balance, right? Or no fund balance at all?
This is a restricted fund balance. So when we talked about the budget just in June, we talked about that there is a fund balance in it, but it does get adjusted based on what you're spending. So MDE will take back those funds and it'll just adjust the fund balance, but it does nothing to the unassigned or assigned fund balance. It's its own restricted fund balance.
And is that fund balance usable in later years?
It is not. What you would do is you would levy for your additional projects, so you'd always be continuing to levy as you move forward. So if some projects didn't happen in the current year, you can reach out to Sarah Miller, and then sometimes you can defer that restricted fund balance until the next fiscal year, so it won't be adjusted in your levy. So there are things we are working for, towards as we move forward. So,
thank you. Thank you, and we'll see you again in a little bit at a special work session.
Thank you.
So colleagues, note that immediately following the work session, we will convene in a special session to approve the 10-year LTFM budget as well. All right, moving on to superintendent's reports. Dr. Anderson will review the 23-24 school year and present the focus areas for the 2024-25 school year. Dr. Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the board. I appreciate having an opportunity to share a few highlights from the 23-24 school year. So this has been somewhat of a tradition, not necessarily only in July, often in July, but probably I've given this report in August, maybe last year, even September, October, an overview of the previous school year. So I do this for a variety of reasons. One, just to provide an overview of all the moving parts within our school district, and to highlight a few priority areas, and also to somewhat set the stage for some ideas that I've put forth to you in regard to considerations for how you'd like for me to focus my work and our time together with our leadership team and with the board in the coming school year. So I prepared a number of slides. You also were presented with a fairly lengthy narrative with a lot of background information that hopefully was insightful and helpful. And part of the reason I provide that to you as well is just because I think it gives a good overview of things that are happening, and it helps you maybe frame up some questions that might come in your mind as we move into, and you're going to hear more about this from Heidi after toward the end of the work session today, just in regard to the superintendent evaluation and the focus areas for the school district. And I think that that can kind of help you generate some questions in your mind as to what might be good focus areas for us in the coming year. So you've heard a couple of examples tonight of things that probably I didn't necessarily highlight so much within the report, although I did touch on the long-term facilities maintenance with the facilities component. But when you think in terms of calendar, and you think in terms of other reports that we've had during the course of the school year, any of those things could have probably been listed on here. I could probably have had 100 paragraphs of summary things of projects that are happening. And one that you'll see on the radar for the coming year, but I didn't necessarily highlight specifically for this year, is the work on the READ Act. So I'm sure Dana has been anxiously waiting opportunities for me to share highlights on that. But that'll be something that will certainly have a high presence in the coming year. So I will work through these slides and then certainly give you some opportunity to offer some questions and some preliminary insights as we think in terms of gearing up for the coming school year. So of all of those, what I did is I took last year's things on the radar, so to speak, on that summary document from a year ago, and tried to highlight what were some of the key focus areas that we had for the 23-24 school year. So you have painful awareness and reflection back on the budget process probably, and the cost containment activities that we've been involved with over the past couple, 2-3 years. And one of the goals, obviously, every year prior to July 1st is the passage of a balanced budget for the next fiscal year. And we accomplished that back in at the June special meeting following the school board work session. So that has been completed. The passing of the district technology levy. You'll recall we have two technology levies in place. The one that passed back in October or November that was presented to the community brings us about $5.7 million annually to be utilized for hardware, software, professional development, personnel, et cetera, for delivery of our technology plan. As a reminder to you and to the members of the community, we have two levies, another one that I think is a little bit less than this one. I'm not quite sure what the current inflationary value is for that one, but we bring in, I think, $9 or $10 million annually to be utilized toward implementation of our technology systems. And, you know, a good example is the communications plan that was presented earlier tonight. That in and of itself probably could have been another goal area, is to streamline communication systems to be used across the district. But those are all examples, as Wade Phillips indicated, that the technology dollars help fund for us. And then we updated the strategic roadmap. Those of you who were active board members back in September remember taking action on the updated strategic roadmap. I'll speak a little bit more about that throughout the slides. And then also some preliminary work on the district operational plan, which is still in progress and being developed, and a recommended timeline that I put on here is hopefully by no later than early fall, we'll have that in good shape for a focus on the objectives for the coming school year. Three other focus areas that I thought were worthy of highlighting and mentioned were the work that we've done with CEL, or Center for Educational Leadership. That really is becoming the framework for, a big part of the framework for instructional delivery, working in tandem with the teaching and learning department. We continue to learn and grow within this model, and have had some really solid areas of success with it. We'll continue to train some additional people this year. In fact, I've been working closely with Dana Miller, our Executive Director of Teaching and Learning. With this initiative, you'll recall that Nate Flansburgh, our recently moved on Associate Superintendent, was one of the key point people for this program, or this approach, working in tandem with our principals very closely, and also our teaching and learning department. So we're in the process of somewhat retooling this and getting a better understanding with fewer personnel to implement and to monitor how can we build in some additional efficiencies yet maintain that strong effectiveness that we think this focus on instruction, the discussion that our teachers have with teacher leaders and members of the teaching and learning department in our professional learning communities and within our BILT teams, which is the Building Instructional Leadership Team, which each one of our schools has. How can we continue to garner even greater momentum with that? You've heard, we just had a lengthy presentation on long-term facilities maintenance programming, as well as our facility needs. So we're in the process of, I just put continuously in process or progress, because it always is. We're always in the throes of some type of a facility study and taking a look at what our capacity needs are and what our program needs are, and then what our general maintenance needs are. And then finally, in recent board meetings, you've had presentations from Ray Queener from TeamWorks International in regard to the enrollment and housing study and the follow-up attendance area process that we're going to be involved with. So this Thursday will be our first design team meeting with a relatively large group of our administrative team from Leadership Council. And I think we have 8 or 9 meetings scheduled out through sometime in October that are on the calendar with the team members that are part of that. We also are planning to have at least 2 input teams, which will be kind of the balance of the other Leadership Council members, which are district administrators as well as principals. And that will also include some community input from parents and staff from each one of the schools. So we're not quite as far down the road in planning for that, but that is on my list of things to start bringing greater organization to. So the process of selecting the consultant is complete, which is what the complete means here for number 6. That does not mean, obviously, that we have all the attendance areas figured out. if I got your hopes up with that, I apologize. That's still the good work that's in front of us. So those are kind of the 6 key areas that I saw, and I want to just focus on the strategic roadmap. So when I came to the district in 2008, we had a handful of what we called district directions. So they were probably more reflective of a less specific set of guiding areas or focus areas that would probably have less specificity than even our strategic directions have. So it was pretty loosely knit at the time. I'm not being critical. I'm just indicating that it was more of a high-level, general, aspirational type of document. And then in 2011, after a pretty lengthy process with a consultant from TeamWorks International, we developed our first strategic roadmap. And that included a mission, vision, core values, and strategic directions. That was again reviewed and revised in 2015 and 2019. And then, as I had indicated before, we updated the roadmap last fall, and the board took action in September of 2023. We created 7 new strategic directions. We sunset the 4 that were in place before. I think these bring greater specificity. One of the things that we've been wrestling with, well, a couple things actually. One, some turnover in staff and point people who were working closely with this. And 2, as you hear of initiatives such as with the communications department tool that we heard about earlier, all of our departments are involved in strategic types of upgrades and improvements that they're making within their department. So I think one of the challenges, and maybe something the board can help me with, is how to find those larger umbrella objectives or goals, taking into account what the individual departments are doing, so that we're not creating things that might feel like busy work or overly aspirational, so they're excessively hard to measure, but are things that legitimately make good sense from a high level on what you would like to see me and our team focus on. And I think the development of that operational plan will be helpful with that. And that will, as I indicated in the larger document that I provided to you, will continue through the summer and into probably early fall, hopefully with board action on that operational plan in whatever form that might look like sometime in the coming 2 to 3 months, I think. So on our strategic roadmap, the mission and vision for the most part have stayed pretty much the same since 2011. I don't think the mission has had any edits made. The vision statement, there's been various formats, but again, I oftentimes speak about these 3 key areas of sort of our, all organizations have products and services, they all have operations, and they all have customers. And really our exceptional student learning experiences and relationships tie into those curriculum programming, academic areas that we deliver, our co-curricular, our student support services, et cetera. That's kind of our product and our service that we provide to our students in our community. And then our larger community, where we look for that trust, confidence, and partnership, are our parents, students, staff. Those are, to a large degree, our customers. And you could argue all 70,000 plus residents within the footprint of the school district all have a vested interest in the school district. And we want for all of our constituents to feel like they are owners within the larger school district, which they are. And then finally, the operational excellence. And that's that sweet spot of efficiency and effectiveness, and always striving to maximize our resources and maximize the outcomes from the products and services that we deliver to our community. Our core values have changed a little bit, but not too much since the onset or the development of that very first strategic roadmap back in 2011. I won't read all the detail, but the headers for the core values are achievement, collaboration, community, equity, integrity, and respect. And again, those have stayed pretty consistent throughout the duration. These are the first 4 of our 7 strategic directions that were updated back in September 2023, and it'll be from these where the district operational plan will have as its kind of its roots or its seed to develop more into the actions and activities within the district. But And I'll try to just give a quick summary of each, but that number one is really our one of our main focus areas is what the student experience, making sure that when our students come to our schools each day that they have a great experience with us. We deliver high quality instruction that ties into that CEL work that I spoke about. Some of you are familiar with the high school work with the Portrait of a Graduate. That's a great example of the developing focus on the student experience. So we want our students to learn the academics, but we also want them to have fond recollections about how did I feel when I was at our school and what was the type of experience that I had. Number three really ties into all of our staff that do hiring, but in many ways it's kind of rooted within our human resources department, and a focus area that Stacy has, I know as always, to focus on recruiting, hiring, supporting, and developing our staff and retaining them, so that after we hire them and put invested dollars into developing them, that we make sure that they stay and they retain or maintain their high quality deliver of whatever their work function might be. Next, continuing to build that health and well-being of our students and our school district community, whether it's physical health or mental and physical health combined. Number five, learning and improving from community engagement, strategic partnerships. I think that, again, that's a focus area for all of our departments. Really, all of these can fit in all of our departments, but maybe our communications and community engagement department specifically focuses on this. Just having better communication delivery models like we heard about tonight is one way of doing that, and seeking ways to get feedback so that we can continuously improve and get better. Always striving for that operational excellence or efficient use of district resources. I think over the years we've been really good at that, actually, and trying to stretch each dollar the best we can and be efficient, take good care of our facilities, to a point made by Valentina earlier this evening about getting out in front of repair and maintenance so that something may not happen that creates a bigger problem than could have been avoided. So always trying to be efficient and effective with that. And then number seven, just aligning our teams, our departments, and all of the different types of collaboration that needs to happen. It's essential that all of our departments work closely together, whether it's finance with HR or HR with teaching and learning. There's just so much overlap that even though we have our specialized areas and work within each department, it really takes strong collaboration, teamwork, and a focus on helping bring out the best in each other as individual professionals, as well as from the departments that we interact with and work with so closely. Some other important work that happened in 23-24, again, I don't know, I think I have 11 or 12 things listed here on these two slides, but I probably could have had 50 listed on here. I don't know, it's hard to choose those sometimes, but they're driven a little bit from focus areas that were on the radar at the end of last year, but obviously our work with local legislators. I think in the 2023 session, I probably did as much engagement during that session as I did all the previous years in my role as superintendent. 24 was a little different just because it wasn't a funding year, and a lot of the conversations there was with, at least with our vested interest, was with SROs, with the READ Act, funding for professional development, et cetera, which there were positive results from both of those. So we're appreciative for the work they did with the SROs. I'll speak a little bit about some new policies that I think evolved from some of those legislative changes. School board election, obviously, 4 of you were elected to the board, 1 re-elected, 3 elected for the first time. And that's certainly a big event for a school district when we're running an election. So I appreciate the work that Amy Geis did and her maiden voyage on providing leadership and oversight to that. She's still smiling, so that's a good sign. But that was a tremendous effort. She did a wonderful job with it. I can't say enough positives about it. Striving for excellence in each departmental area. I listed the leadership persons in each one of those areas, I think, in the narrative document. But again, just the high quality staff that we're fortunate to have in our departments and the level of engagement they have with each other is appreciated. I do my best to stay connected to PTA and PTO groups. I think almost all of the 16 years I've been here, I've probably been to at least one PTA meeting in each of our buildings. So that's a pretty involved process. And I also am always at our district liaison meetings, which is a great opportunity for us. If you go back to one of those strategic directions, harvesting those insights from our community. I mean, there's a lot of ways you do that aren't necessarily tied into a specific SMART goal or, a specific way of categorizing everything you do. But, frankly, I do a lot of that at Hy-Vee and Target probably when I'm just out and communicating with parents that I run into, and I enjoy that. It's a great opportunity, and you pick up a lot of great insights even when you aren't looking for them sometimes, but that's a good thing. Same thing at student activities and being involved with all the great things that our students are connected to. I enjoy being at as many of those types of things as I can get to. I believe I could go to at least 3 things every night, maybe weekends included. I try to have a night at home periodically and do my best with that. I also go to a lot of advisory committee meetings and strategic partner groups. Examples of those would be our District 287, Wayzata Education Fund. I'm a member of the Wayzata Rotary. So there are a lot of different ways that superintendents and our staff have opportunities to connect in with the community. I just mentioned the Ed Fund. I've been involved with that all 16 years that I've been here, and I think I've been helpful in providing some guidance and assistance with fundraising and different things with that. City government involvement. Right now, Medina and Corcoran are really heavy on the radar because that's where the housing developments are. And we continue to grow Plymouth, and Plymouth is pretty well filled out. I think Maple Grove is pretty well filled out. Wayzata has been for quite some time with just some, smaller developments. I think we're still, even though we try not to keep thinking about, who wants to keep thinking about and talking about the pandemic? Not me. I've had enough of it, quite frankly. But the reality of it is, we know it's still out there. The resonating impact hasn't fully left us. And it ebbs and flows and comes back, and I think right now we're in a little bit of an uptick again nationally with it, probably locally and in the state as well. But I think we're kind of on a new trajectory is how I would define it or describe it. It's different than where we were headed 5 years ago because we kind of got blown off course. And now we're just on a new course, and we're adjusting to that and doing our best to maintain the old days, whatever that might be, and at the same time realizing that we are on a bit of a different trajectory and need to continue to be responsive to that to the best we can. School board meetings and board committee meetings, obviously very involved with that, and that's I think that's been an important culture developer for this district over the years, is just those opportunities to engage with board members in smaller settings in topic areas of interest, whether it's facilities, policy, finance, whatever the case might be, HR. It gives opportunities for board members to provide their expertise from their own life experiences and professional experiences that are really helpful. And it's an opportunity for you to get to know our team members, and worth getting to know, I think. So I think it's a great opportunity for you. And then I highlighted some of the college and university visits that I've done. I won't elaborate much on that, but I think it's important to develop relationships across the country with where 85 to 90% of our kids go every year. Many in the state, but many outside of the state and even outside of the country. Some possible focus areas for 24-25. Again, I'll try to hit these quickly, but I think this is what we'll be working on, in the coming month or 6 weeks here during the evaluation process and the planning process for the coming school year. But the operational plan I spoke about before, we're in the process, that could have been another one I could have put down for this year, in the process of reinventing our Welcome Center. And it's going to be more connected to community education in our communications department than in the past. With the finance part still being within our finance department to ensure that we get all the maximum funding for each student, and that involves coding appropriately when students enroll into the district, et cetera. So I really like how that's evolving. We had a consultant come in, a former staff member former HR director, Annie Doty, who came in and did a pretty extensive evaluation and set of interviews in regard to our current functions within the Welcome Center and made recommendations that I think will end up being really helpful. Jenny Ebert has worked really hard on this, and I know that Amy Parnell and several others have worked through good teamwork to help develop some preliminary concepts for this. So that'll be ongoing throughout the year. Cost containment and budget. Again, we're, I think, positioned better than we've been in the last few years. I think it's kind of leveling off. And we need to always focus on that one-year plan of what's next year's budget look like, but also make sure that we're in a good position to maintain good long-term financial sustainability and be consistent with those fund balance goals that the district has set. Number 4, the enrollment housing study. We will complete that. It will be completed by early December at the latest, and you will be in a position to take action on those new attendance areas probably at that December school board meeting at the latest, because we need that time frame in order for us to be able to plan for the 25-26 school year. So I think we have a good plan lined up. I'm feeling confident in the consultant that we selected, and think that they'll do a really good job for us in that. Continue with the district's facilities plan. We've had quite a lot of conversation about that, so I won't speak too much about that, but just continuing to take a look at capacity needs and the quality of the programming venues that we provide to our students. Continuing with the CEL work in our instructional delivery, working closely with teaching and learning. I think Dana and I will be kind of the team for that this year, and working closely with ensuring that that continues to move forward. Continue to work with legislators. The next round will be a funding year again, so we can gear up and look forward to that, and hope that funding streams will continue to come to the district to help us continue to grow out of the challenges we've had, and again to hopefully keep up with inflationary pressures. Continue, here's Dana, this will make you happy that I included this for the radar for the coming year, but continuing with the implementation of the READ Act. And we did get some additional funding from the legislature for that. I think the calendar component that you approved or didn't approve, but you will at the next meeting, is tied into that as well, in that some professional development days were required to be built in. Implementing the new middle school model, you might still recall that we made some modifications there. Principals are working really hard to accommodate the elective requests by students, and wrestling with that new schedule. New schedules are always tough, so keep the middle school principals in your thoughts here, if you would, as they scramble to keep that moving forward. They'll land it, but it's a challenge right now, but they'll take care of it. And then always taking a look at our student support service model. So I offer those as insights. We're going to work on all those things regardless. I think as we gear up for your engagement with me here in the coming 4 to 6 weeks, you might want to think in terms of what are the priorities of those, and or what might 11 through 15 or 11 through 40 look like, and which ones would you want for us to focus on. So with that was a high flyover. I don't know how much time that took, but more than I thought it probably would, because I can get rambly at the mic sometimes, but hopefully that provides you some insight, and hopefully the document that I shared with you earlier on the weekend, and then it's included in board book for anybody else who may have an interest in reviewing that. Hopefully those things were helpful to give kind of some perspective. So with that, Mr. Chair, I'll turn it back over to you if anybody has any questions on that regard.
Thank you, Dr. Anderson. So board colleagues, just remember that we have the superintendent evaluation coming up soon. I think this is a very good document to keep in front of you and look at what Dr. Anderson has shared with us to make your comments with respect to that. So any questions on that piece? You can always ask those at the superintendent evaluation meeting as well, but if you have some right now, go ahead. Sheila? Yeah.
I have more of a comment. First of all, thank you for sharing that. It has been an interesting year, and thank you for all that you've done. And I'm sorry that Nate is gone, because that's putting a lot of, extra jobs onto people. I was, the CEL work and the READ Act have been so beneficial to our students. And I'm glad to see that, that both of those are a focus for the next year. we heard lots of stories. Well, not lots, but we at one meeting had heard about how students are making amazing gains through some of the, through some of the new practices that teachers are implementing due to CEL work, but also the READ Act. And I just, I hope that these practices can spread to all of the elementary schools. And again, I'm very happy to see that as a focus and hope that you recognize the value of it as well. And we'll continue on with that with Dana.
Definitely. Thanks for that. And I'll just say Dana and the teaching and learning team have been deeply involved in that process too, with instructional coaches and the focus on literacy. And it's all aligned within this, the CEL's kind of framework, and the meeting patterns and the focus on data are kind of all things that we've elevated our focus on. And I think there will continue to be some coalescing of all of these different things into something that will be really solid. But I appreciate her work and the work of her team. Thank you for your inputs.
No other questions? Thank you, Dr. Anderson. We'll move on to the next item.
All right.
Your reports, the policies.
Thank you. Before you, and I looked through my packet, I'm not sure that, I don't know if I have them. I don't know if I need them in front of me, but you have them on board book. I'll just kind of speak to them because I wasn't planning on going through them in great detail. But there are 2 new policy requirements, and I mentioned the SRO work that was done. You'll probably recall the history that there were some legislative changes made in the 2023 session, which ended up resulting in our local police departments removing their SROs from the schools through I can't remember the exact date. It was, I suppose it was along the way last spring somewhere, and we were without SROs. And then for a while, I think, I don't know, I'm kind of losing my train of thought in regard to the timelines. But anyway, they were out of our schools for a while. As a reminder, we have 2 full-time officers at Wayzata High School, and we've had 1 full-time officer at each of our 3 middle schools. Wayzata Police Department provides the West Middle School SRO, and then the Plymouth Police Department provide SROs to East, Central, and the high school, and to Robbinsdale District for schools that have SROs there as well. The Plymouth Police Department provides officers there too. So we often think in terms of it's only 4, but for them it's 4 plus whatever they have in their other school districts that are part of the city of Plymouth. So the good news is, and I connected up with both Eric Fadden and Mark Schultz, the lead police chiefs at the city of Plymouth and city of Wayzata. They will have full-time SROs for us at the start of the school year. So we'll have 2 at the high school, 1 at East, 1 at Central, provided by Plymouth, and then 1 full-time at Wayzata. A big part of the new policies, 504, which is school resource officers, and 523, the corporal punishment and prone restraint that you had an opportunity to take a look at. A lot of the wording in that is driven by the changes that were made that brought that peace of mind back to the local police departments to return SROs to the buildings. And a big part of that is focused on training. So because there was turnover with the Wayzata Police Department, and there's a time frame that the training needs to occur by. I think there's kind of a grace period for a while, but I would just have to say all of our officers in Plymouth and Wayzata are very well trained. The specific SRO training needs to occur, I think it was within 6 months at the start of the school year or something on that order. And we will meet all those training requirements. I think the 4 that will be provided by Plymouth Police will have that training in place prior to the start of the school year. And for West Middle School, where the Wayzata officer will be placed, because of some changes in their personnel, and because the new person assigned to that role was not able to get registered into the training prior to the start of the school year, it'll happen early in the school year. So, but still within the time frame of what the statute required. So I think both of our departments have been really great in making sure that our SROs have very strong training. The police departments provide that. Some have asked, do the school districts provide that, or what kind of training do they get? We don't provide the formal SRO training, but the police departments work I don't know, either within their departments or more broadly across the state to register for those so that they get all the appropriate training. But our officers do work very closely with our leadership teams in the buildings, our administrators, and others to learn from them about building protocols. And I think there's a lot of training and leadership that occurs with that. So anyway, the policies that are before you are new required policies. You're not going to be taking action on them tonight. We're bringing them here tonight for you for a first reading so that you have a chance to review them prior to the August school board meeting, when we'll bring those back for your action so that you have a chance to review them, ask any questions, take action on them in August, hopefully approve them, and then we'll have them in place well in advance of the start of the school year. So with that, I don't think I have any more to offer on those two policies. And if anybody has any questions, you can feel free to ask at this time if you wish.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Anderson. Board colleagues, just to note that these two new policies, which have been the result of bills passed in the state legislature over the last couple of years, couple of sessions, the SRO policy was introduced in the session before last, and then there was a big upheaval, I guess, kind of, where the Attorney General jumped in, and then there were a lot of associations that did not like the wording, so they went back and modified that, and now it is acceptable to all the legislators, I guess. So this is the first reading, like Dr. Anderson said, and these are both adopted from the model policies that we typically do, that MSBA writes. And so those are also available for your review as well. So this is the first reading. We will have a policy committee meeting tomorrow morning. We will be discussing this again tomorrow, and we'll then propose this to be brought in front of the board at the August 12th meeting for approval. Any questions for Dr. Anderson?
Just a comment.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, I think, to be honest, the way how society was treating our policemen, kudos for a department that they stood up for their men, because police officers need to be respected, because their life always also in the line. And I'm glad that obviously we as school also very much so needed them, SROs. In fact, I heard feedback from my own son that SRO, it was not like a punishment. SRO was the only guy one day when he had trouble, kind of first day of middle school. That's the only person who was there, who saw it and helped. And my son said at the time, can we buy, when it was, to be honest, Scout fundraising, can we buy a reef for police department, for example? So it's a positive interaction. And I'm glad that they were able to work out such a way that policeman is respected, and hopefully they will not think about that if and they will get in trouble. But at the same time, our kids are getting what they need. Thank you for being able to work through it.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I'll just say we have a wonderful working relationship with both of our police departments. And I would affirm what you shared, Valentina, that the relationships that they're able to develop with our students are impressive and very helpful to the police departments and to our students as well.
Yes, thank you to the Plymouth Police Department and the Wayzata Police Department for working with us very closely, and I think they do a great job. So thank you to them.
Thanks,
Okay.
everybody.
Thank you, Dr. Anderson. So the final item on this agenda for this work session this evening is school board reports. Director Kader will now give a brief update on the superintendent evaluation process.
Thank you, everybody. We can hop right in. I hear some thunder, so I'm going to try to move as quickly as possible to get us all home safely. Let's go into the first slide. So what I realized is, not everyone on our board may have been through or experienced an evaluation process or a 360 review. They come with many names. And so what I wanted to start with was, what's the purpose of a performance evaluation? And I'm just going to go through just a little bit of information to frame us up into this new process that we're going to be going through together as a board. So it is supposed to be a positive process that aims to acknowledge and encourage high-quality performance. It is intended to ensure a culture of continuous improvement and growth, which I think aligns really well with our district roadmap. It is to build on and increase the effectiveness of the recipient. It's to provide constructive feedback. So it's our opportunity to provide that constructive feedback about overall job performance, influential behaviors, and opportunities for improvement. And really, we want to focus on the opportunity piece of it. And what it does is, as Dr. Anderson read his annual, his year in review, what it does is it helps us to kind of lead into the next year. It sets a stage and leads into the next year for areas of focus. And so his areas of focus kind of come from both what the administration, our principals, which means our teachers and all of that built-in CEL work is coming up into, and also our feedback through this evaluation process. We can go to the next slide. So for our evaluation, so that's really, the background of what an evaluation process is and what it's intended to do. It's really supposed to be a positive approach. So the goals and expectations for this evaluation for Dr. Anderson is that, again, it's an avenue for us to offer annual feedback. Board members are expected to be engaged in being thoughtful and constructive in the annual feedback process. So we're going to go through what the entire process is going to look like here in a minute. We want to ensure that the board is aligned with the Office of Superintendent. And so as we were talking in our development meeting about how we interact with the Office of the Superintendent, this is one of those ways that we can ensure that we are aligned with the Office of the Superintendent and he's aligned with us. It keeps us on track with the strategic roadmap. As Dr. Anderson said, there's a million things that are going on in the district at any given time, and we really have to make sure that we are kind of putting bumpers on and staying aligned to that strategic roadmap. Any good evaluation process, if you talk to any HR person, will tell you that there should be no surprises during the evaluation process. So during the course of the year, this is just the capstone, right? But during the course of the year, we have been giving feedback. We have been having the opportunity to get information from the district, from Dr. Anderson, and there's that constant feedback loop that we should be engaged in. And so the end of the year really shouldn't have any giant surprises. The outcome of this is going to be a written evaluation that is shared with the superintendent and the public. And it will include thoughts from us as the board on areas of focus for the upcoming year. Okay, so hopping into the timeline, there's extra work involved in this, right? So today was kind of the kickoff of the evaluation process. And so during this week sometime, you will receive in your inbox an evaluation survey that is sent to you electronically. It'll come directly from me, and you will have from the 27th approximately, maybe a little bit more time than that, to August 13th to complete your survey as an individual. Then what happens, so each person, we will have 7 different replies, right? And then what happens is the committee comes together to prepare the materials. We're going to have one person off of the committee who's preparing the materials. And then we go into a closed session as a board. So the 7 of us will go into closed session to review and discuss the results. And I'll walk you through what that process looks like when we get to that meeting. After that, so between August 21st and 23rd, the superintendent evaluation committee will meet to make sure that we've finalized the written evaluation letter. What we're going to do as a board together is we'll start drafting it together. We'll have ideas in there, and then the committee will finalize it. There will be a short version that is read out loud at a board meeting, and then a long version that's also included in board book and given to Dr. Anderson. Between the 23rd and 25th, after the committee has finalized that letter, the whole board will have an opportunity to review it one last time.
And then the plan is on August 26th, we'll go into closed session with Dr. Anderson after our regularly scheduled work session to go over the evaluation. On September 9th, then, we will present the evaluation at the regular meeting for the entire community to hear. So this is a process that has worked many, many times in the past. Again, I'm sorry, but it is a couple extra meetings for us during the end of the summer. But I think we've landed on some dates that work for everybody, dates and times. And so Amy's going to be gracious enough to get those posted for me. And we'll move forward that way. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
I have a question.
Sure.
I still didn't hear, though, who is going to be seeing all this feedback and who is going to be putting, to be honest, I can see here personal biases because when you're making a short version, you are choosing what you like. I'm talking about somebody who would be doing it. So is it going to be a person from our committee, or is it going to be one of us as members, one of 7 of us? How we are going to be? What do you expect?
So for the writing of the actual evaluation, there's a short version and a long version, right?
Yes. Yes.
My intention is that during our closed session as the 7 members of a board, we'll be drafting it. So I'll have a screen up and I'll be typing it up as we go along so that the entire board has input into what's included and what's not included. And then again, we have that second checkpoint of, so then there's, it's the big level is drafted. And then we as a committee go together to make sure that it's kind of finalized and ready. We send it out to the board a second time in order for the board to be able to review it again before we go into closed session with Dr. Anderson. So everyone will have an opportunity to say what needs to be included.
So are you saying that we will be able to see each other's feedback?
Absolutely.
Is it going anonymous, or how does it look like?
In the past, it has been anonymous.
Okay.
Because we don't ask for names. So what we do is we've had, in the past, we've used a Survey Monkey. Mm-hmm. What I'm learning is that it's not entirely as secure as we want it to be. And so this year it may be in the form of a Google document because it's more secure. We can add some controls on it of who's able to go in and who's not. And so it will be anonymous in that we don't ask for your name in the actual survey. Now, if there is something that needs to be tracked, it's included. If somebody's clicking into a Google form, you're able to see who's clicking into a Google form. And we know that each one of the 7 of us will be responding. And so we will all see everybody's answers, but they won't be associated with each other's names. Does that make sense?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Can I make a quick comment? Yes, I was in the past 2 evaluations, and you're right, there was a Survey Monkey survey. However, immediately after that, when we meet for the first time as a board, we have a discussion, and there are members that express their opinions. So at that point, it really is not anonymous as far as how they feel. The survey itself, I think the responses to the survey are anonymous. But if I express something during that meeting, it is not anonymous. Valentina will know what I'm thinking. You will know what I'm thinking. So I think that's okay.
Yeah,
that's okay.
I agree with you. I think that has to be. We are all going to have to find our voices.
Yes.
It can be a little bit uncomfortable.
Yes.
As we're talking about these topics, but again, the process is supposed to be one that's engaging and positive and moving us forward in the district. And so hopefully you'll be able to find a level of comfort as you're going through the process. You're with your board colleagues, right? It's supposed to be a trusted space that we can talk freely and share our opinions and thoughts. So that's the hope.
And I'm hoping that during that meetings, we will be able to also discuss that some of our goals need to be measurable. Anywhere business-like, you measure. And I would like also to see that goals are measured. they need to be attainable. Nobody is asking to do something what is not doable. We all know this past year had been very difficult on teachers. I mean, many districts. So, but that's why I'm not challenging to do anything too difficult. But it's, at the same time, if you put a goal which is attainable, but at the same time it is measurable, at least you know that you are doing something, you are changing. When it is without measurement, it is very hard to give a feedback.
Heidi, may I interrupt? I think this, Valentina, you have a valid point there, but that is something that is what I think we should take up at the evaluation meeting itself.
Okay.
Let's not make this one.
No, this is just was a comment.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, any other questions, thoughts, concerns? If there's anything, feel free to reach out to me. I'm always available. And then look forward to seeing a survey come through your email box this week from me.
Thank you so much. This completes our agenda for this evening. We will now take a 2-minute break instead of a 5-minute break. I had a 5-minute break written in my script, but because of the thunder, Heidi, is it okay for 2 minutes? Okay.
So.
Following which we will reconvene for a special regular meeting of the board. It is now 6:05 p.m. The Wayzata Public Schools Board of Education work session for July 22nd, 2024 is adjourned.